Hello, and welcome back to Voice Notes, a live journal where I casually talk about things concerning a resolute mind. Today's topic is actually a question that I would like to present to myself. I present the question: is it the case that practice makes permanent? For me, this is quite the thought-provoking question, for in my own imagination, I would speculate that the answer may very well be both yes and no. But this is a simple question that yields either a yes or a no. So, I'm going to provoke much thought here, and then afterwards, I will reveal my final response. So let me probe a little bit. Before I go on to determine if indeed doing something over and over again would eventually lead me to another thing that is sure, true, and long-lasting, I would like to consider something else. I first need to think about where exactly am I going with this activity? What is my endpoint? What is my destination? In other words, what is my limitation? What can I and what can't I do? I do find these very questions quite critical to determine how, when, or even if I'm going to practice this particular activity in the first place. There must be some motivating force or factor that allows me to initiate this practice. Where is my confidence coming from exactly? Which brings me to a place and nature that I do find quite dear. I look towards a sovereign nature. I ask myself more questions. Can one determine his own destiny? Does one know his end from his beginning? Does one even know his beginning from his end? Of course, at the end of it all, there is always the element of uncertainty, or in not knowing one's end. I can't be too sure about how near or how far I'm going to reach that point of destination. But never should I be discouraged or held back because of what I do not know. I keep looking towards that point of destination to help me reach where I would like to reach. I should not get discouraged just because I do not actually know the end point. Now, this is a very powerful statement because regardless of how I perform in my practice, I keep looking towards the end point. It doesn't matter how long it takes me, I still look towards that end point. But now, this takes me to another perspective. That is, approaching practice from a humble stance. In order that one moves from one level to a higher level, it is imperative that he first understands his present level. It only makes sense that his posture is much lower than the posture that he is trying to attain. Humility is an essential factor in one's learning process. Humility is both student and teacher. It takes humility to learn from the humble. But this is usually the place to start learning any craft. I can listen to a child speak in all his glory, and from this one person I have much to learn. For the world has not yet taught him his wrongs or how to fix them. This child just speaks from the heart. That's all. Isn't that wonderful? This child is not imprisoned by his critical ways, for there is none in him. This is a lesson that I must consider on my journey. Who cares how I sound when I open my mouth? I just want to get my point across. It matters more to me that I speak in the first place than how little I say because of fear of rejection. When someone no longer cares what another thinks of what he does, this is complete freedom. one is not held back by life's criticisms and oftentimes misgivings. One is just delighted to know that he can express himself. Now let's cut to the chase. I would like to touch on how practice works to build memory. Now, I do not know about you, but for me, I hate cramming. I hate with passion repeating words again and again, only to regurgitate these words at some later date. For me, there is no connect. It is like gibberish, almost something like a ritual. This is not how I learn. I am the emotional one, and so for me, learning comes with much emotional experiences. When I study, I try to make studying a pleasurable experience. I play with my thoughts. I provoke further thoughts just to get me to retain what I originally want to retain. I do see this application when practicing anything really. Who wants to practice something that seems like a chore? Surely one would wait for that day when he can finally rest from his assigned duties. And this is how I personally feel. Sure, one can remember what one does and how he does it, but can you retain this practice for much longer? This brings up the issue of permanence. A pleasurable experience yields positive, permanent outcomes, at least ones that are longer lasting. It may even become addictive if one is such a type. One needs to keep doing in order to keep doing. There is no other formula. There is only room for progress. If one stops, he must start all over again until he finds the formula, that which sustains him. So, this leads me to another point. How does one keep up the momentum? I'm going to stay quiet for a while and think about this question. Obviously, everyone is different, and so this question actually leads to various answers. But for now, I ponder on simple strategies or perhaps tactics I can potentially adopt to help the momentum alive. I list them here. 1. Keep it simple. Whatever I am to do, I must keep it simple. I do not need to put on myself with much more complexities when I'm starting from the beginning, the very beginning. All I am to do is just to start. I may hold insecurities, but I should be willing to just start. Keeping it simple allows me to start however and wherever. 2. I pace myself. This is not a sprint, but a marathon. In other words, I may know my beginning, but I have no clue where I am going to end up. In this case, I practice not for the short term, but for the very long term. In order that I do this, I first must realize my capabilities. How much can I handle at any one point in time before I notice that I am beginning to get burnt out? From the very beginning, I may get excited and push myself to great lengths, but I understand that I get tired and it is work. For this reason, I consider how much work I can do in one day, in 1 week, in 1 month, and even in 1 year. Pacing allows me to get the work done regardless of time. 3. Self-talk. It is important that I connect myself back to myself. Connecting myself to myself allows me to determine errors and what needs further reinforcement. This is a personal affair when trying to work on a skill, and keeping myself in check along the journey allows me to see how far or how short a distance I have come along. Monitoring is an essential and quite powerful tool to get one to his destination. I touch on one final point. I open up the secret chamber. Doesn't one know that when he engages in practice, he's entering a relationship? Yes, he is. He has bridled himself with his main lover as he remains committed to his line of duty. Indeed, practice requires discipline, sacrifice, pain, discouragement, frustration, commitment, passion, etc., etc. Why I say this is love. Once you start, there is no going back. Even if you stop, one day you will remember that love affair you once had and return to it with much vigor and attention. But now I tell you, what keeps one in a relationship? Isn't it all about the secrets that one may share with another? That which keeps them bonded? I tell you, practicing does yield some of the best rewards, but quite fascinatingly, the doors of wisdom become open when one willingly fights through the struggle of learning that skill. You never leave your practice empty-handed. This is learning, and from it you bear its fruit. Okay, I leave you with these thoughts, and with that, I agree with the topical statement. Yes, practice can make permanent, but it requires a great deal of love for that skill one is trying to acquire. Initially, one thinketh that he hates what he does, yet surprised, he finds out that it is the best and most exhilarating experience he has indeed come across in his lifetime.